making our Super Bowl 59 prediction. This is my prediction for who I think is going to win in the upcoming Super Bowl matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, before we get into the big game itself, let's paint a clear picture of what the paths were to get to this point. What was our playoff story? In the first round of this year's NFL playoffs, also known as the Wildcard Round, we saw the second-seeded Philadelphia Eagles take on the seventh-seeded Green Bay Packers. This was a much-awaited matchup, as the NFC was very strong this year, boasting many teams with a record way above positive. You had the Green Bay Packers at an impressive 11-6 record in the regular season, finishing as the 7th seed because that's how strong the NFC was. And so they head to Philadelphia to face off against an Eagles team that did not lose very many games this year. And unfortunately, this is where the Green Bay Packers story had to end. In a game that was a defensive clinic by the Eagles, the Packers were completely dismantled. They had no points in the first half at all. The Eagles led them 10-0, and by the end of the game, the Eagles would win 22-10 over the Packers. And a large reason why the Eagles were able to win this game was due to Saquon Barkley. Of their 290 total yards, Saquon accounted for 119 through the ground and 4 through the air. So that's 123 total, and yeah, that's nearly half of their total yards. Another big reason why the Eagles were able to win this game was the turnover differential. They committed 0 turnovers themselves, and they were able to force 4 turnovers on the Packers, making it a very easy victory for them. Now, with that, we are able to set the stage for our Divisional Round of the NFL playoffs. In the Divisional Round, heading back over to the AFC, we saw the Kansas City Chiefs play their first game of the playoffs. As the number 1 seed in the AFC, they had a first round bye, and in the second round they found themselves matching up against the 4-seeded Houston Texans. The Texans, with a surprise win over the Chargers in the first round of the playoffs, were headed to Arrowhead to challenge Kansas City. Now, this game was largely predicted to go in favor of the Chiefs. They're playing at home. They're playing against a Texans team that doesn't look as strong as last year, somewhat injury-riddled. What would the outcome of the game be? And through the first, 3 quarters and a couple minutes, it was somewhat close. We did have a point in this game where it was a 12-13 game with 4 minutes left in the third. But from that point on, it was the Chiefs the entire rest of the way through, and they would go on to win this game 23-14 over the Texans, headed to their 7th straight AFC Championship game. And this Chiefs win, they got it done. They basically just got it done. They didn't have better yardage in the pass game or the rush game. They weren't better on third down. They were not. The Texans didn't have any turnovers, but in execution, there was a difference. There was 8 penalties for 82 yards for the Texans, whereas there was 4 penalties for 29 yards for the Chiefs, and sacks were a huge factor. You've got George Karlaftis with his 3 sacks, and as a whole, the Chiefs were able to swarm C.J. Stroud and put him on the ground 8 times. So the biggest difference being here, the sacks and the penalties, with the Chiefs being able to advance into the next round of the playoffs. side of things, we take a look at the Eagles, who are now matched up against the 4 seed as well in the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams being able to defeat the Minnesota Vikings in the first round of the playoffs in a Monday night game taking place in Arizona because of the Los Angeles wildfires. So the Rams not quite exactly having a home field advantage. They were still able to do quite a number on the Vikings, and Sam Darnold making that game a dominant victory for them. With that win, they were able to find themselves heading into the second round of the playoffs to match up against the Eagles. And this game was a spectacle. Very close fought. You've got snow. There's a light amount of snow at the start of the game. There's a heavy amount of snow by the end of the game. And this one really was magical. You've got Saquon Barkley with 2 impressively long runs. He got the Eagles 285 rush yards on the day. Saquon himself finished with 205 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. A big juggernaut, offensive juggernaut for the Eagles here. The Rams, on the other hand, they looked like they were down and out. There was how many minutes left? With 4.5 minutes left in the game, they were down 13 points. It really looked like it was over. Then they snapped their fingers, and all of a sudden they were able to move the ball down the field. Matthew Stafford completing pass after pass after pass. They get their first touchdown with 2:48, and with 30 seconds left, they were able to make it look like it was anyone's game. 4th and 15. All they have to do is pick up the first down, spike the ball, get in the end zone, and maybe the Rams can win the game. But the Philadelphia Eagles able to get a much-needed stop on 4th down to send them to the NFC Championship game. In this game, once again, 285 yards rushing by the Eagles was really the difference maker here. And the turnover margin, once again, the Eagles committing 0 turnovers, while the Rams surrendered 2 fumbles. And with that, we head into our third round of the playoffs. This is the most anticipated round for a lot of people. You have the AFC Championship game and the NFC Championship game. In the AFC Championship game, we saw the Buffalo Bills challenge the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a story we've seen play out in the playoffs a few times before, with each of those games going in favor of the Chiefs. But Buffalo seemingly has better odds this year, being the only team in the NFL to defeat the Kansas City Chiefs in the regular season while they had their starters in. Will it finally happen? Josh Allen 4-4 against Patrick Mahomes in his career, 0-3 in the playoffs. Does he finally get his first win? And the answer is no. The Chiefs, they do it once again. The Chiefs, kind of characterized by a lower scoring offense this year. There were many graphics put up towards the end of the year about how the Chiefs could not score 30 plus points. The list of teams that were unable to score over 30 in the regular season being the Raiders, the Patriots, one more team which I cannot recall, and then the Kansas City Chiefs. So a bunch of the bottom of the barrel teams and the best team in the league. But when it mattered most, the Chiefs showed up, and they showed out, defeating the Bills 32-29 in a game that was very well played. They were able to get 135 yards on the ground, 233 yards to the air. They did not win the turnover battle. They actually had one turnover that they surrendered to the Bills, but they were just better in crunch time. It was actually a dead even score. It was a back and forth game, and with 6 minutes and 15 seconds left, the game was all tied up at 29-29. So anyone could have had it at that point. But the Chiefs, they go down the field, they kick a field goal, take the lead 32-29, and get not one but 2 very important stops against the Bills to cement their third straight Super Bowl appearance. Now, flipping over to the NFC, we will find that the Philadelphia Eagles found themselves facing up against the Washington Commanders for the third time this year. The Commanders stunning many by taking down the Detroit Lions in the previous round. They are riding the high. You've got a rookie, Jaden Daniels, winning 2 road playoff games in his rookie year. Absolutely lighting the NFL world on fire. Now he finds himself matching up against an Eagles team that has dropped a game to this Commanders team. Sorry, that totally threw me off my game. What was I saying? Yeah, the Eagles may be a little bit nervous heading into this matchup, knowing that they have won one and lost one against the Commanders, though a slight asterisk on their loss, with that being the game that Jalen Hurts got a concussion and had to miss majority of it. So lots of people wondered, would the Eagles do it again by going to their second Super Bowl in the last 3 years, or would the young gun in Jaden Daniels be able to have the ultimate underdog story, make the Super Bowl as a rookie starter, which has not been done before. And no, unfortunately for the Commanders fans, the Commanders and Jaden Daniels, they were not able to get over the hump. They had a great season, but the Eagles came out swinging, and they decimated the Commanders in this game. This was probably the best Eagles performance all year. 7 rushing touchdowns. They had 4 turnovers forced on the Commanders to the 0 of their own. 229 rushing yards. Jalen Hurts' best passing day in like 5 weeks. He threw for how many yards? For 246 yards and a touchdown. 20 of 28 passing, with a lot of those incompletions just being smart throwaways out of bounds. This was the Eagles' best performance of the playoffs, coming at the right time. And with that, you have our Super Bowl 59 matchup. The Kansas City Chiefs, the number 1 seed in the AFC, going toe-to-toe against the number 2 seed from the NFC in the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a matchup that we saw just 2 years ago in Super Bowl 57. Now, obviously, that was the first win in a potential 3-peat for the Kansas City Chiefs. That was a different team. I think since that point, both teams have undergone serious roster changes. For the Chiefs, most of those changes have been on the offensive side of the ball. This offense looks almost nothing like it did 2 years ago. Back then, you had Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, I want to say McCole Hardman, all making plays for the Chiefs. You also had Juju Smith-Schuster, but it was a very ragtag lineup of guys. They had just traded away Tyreek Hill, and so the only certified receiver on their roster really was Travis Kelce. That is no longer the case. Now you have a bunch of playmakers for the Kansas City Chiefs, Rashee Rice is out, so not him, but Hollywood Brown, which they were able to acquire this offseason, DeAndre Hopkins, who they picked up in the middle of the year. They got Juju Smith-Schuster back, and that's mostly it. It's a couple other guys. Was there anyone else? Yeah. Anywho, as for the Eagles also making significant improvements on the defensive side of the ball from last year. 2 years ago, they were a great defense. years ago. It is a plethora of new defensive starters. In the secondary, you've got rookie starting cornerbacks in Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, and they have helped elevate this Eagles defense back to kind of the caliber it was a couple years ago, and to, an elite caliber. The Eagles, dare I say it, had the best defense of any team this year, with the lowest amount of total yards allowed. And still, with all of these changes on the Chiefs offense and on the Eagles defense, the number one biggest acquisition or change has been Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley, running back for the New York Giants, an absolute star at Penn State, comes into the NFL, goes to the Giants, and he does just as well as everyone expects him to do. He is a playmaker, a wondrous talent. But as his years with the Giants go on and on, they find themselves to be usually middling at best, in fact quite bad at most times, with a single season in the middle where they're able to make the playoffs in Brian DeBoer's rookie year as their head coach. But after last year, Saquon Barkley tried to return to the Giants, and the Giants decided they were not going to pay him. And so he hit the free agent market, and the Eagles picked him up, paying him not that much money. I mean, compared to other positions in the NFL at least. And he would go on to have what could be considered the best season for a running back ever, falling about 100 yards shy to Eric Dickerson's in-season rushing yard record. And then in the playoffs, he has been on a tear, getting at least 100 yards in each of the Eagles' postseason matchups. He is only a handful shy of the most yards ever by a running back over the course of a season, including the playoffs. And he really is the focal point of this offense now. The biggest difference between 2 years ago and now is Saquon Barkley. So, with all of this in mind, who do I think is going to win the Super Bowl? Well, I think if we just look at the positional matchups, defense, I have to give it to the Eagles. The Chiefs' defense, don't get me wrong, it is good. Their rush defense especially, quite solid. But you look at the Eagles' defense, it is better. Just in both ways. As a run-stopping defense, it is a better defense. As a secondary, as a passing defense, it is a better defense. Always, you can mold it. I do think that the Eagles have a better defense. Then, we'll look at the offense. And, on paper, I want to say that the Eagles have the better offense. You've got weapons-wise, the Chiefs have this upgraded weapons list with Hollywood Brown, with DeAndre Hopkins, bring back Juju, and you have Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt. But on the flip side of Travis Kelce, of course. But the wide receivers for the Eagles, you've got Jahan Dotson, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown. In the running back room, you've got Saquon Barkley now. As a quarterback, it's Patrick Mahomes versus Jalen Hurts. You're never going to take the best quarterback title away from Patrick Mahomes. And, yeah, just putting them on paper, I would say, though, it looks like the Eagles have a more impressive offense. So, with that, I predict that the winner of Super Bowl 59 is going to be none other than the Kansas City Chiefs. And, yeah, it defies reverse logic in some ways, I might say, but I don't think there's any reason to play around about it. I think that this has been the plan all along. If you go back all the way to the start of the playoffs, I had made 2 NFL ESPN playoff brackets. The first one was an outcome in which I thought was going to happen, and I mostly wanted to happen. This was my ideal playoff situation, and it landed a Super Bowl matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the Detroit Lions. And in that game, I had the Detroit Lions winning the Super Bowl, and this bracket was titled the People's Bracket, because I did feel this was not only what I wanted, but I felt this is what the overwhelming majority of people were rooting for. And that obviously crashed and burned by the Divisional Round itself. That bracket was gone. However, I did make a second bracket, and this second bracket I titled The Script. And in the script, my Super Bowl 59 matchup was that of a Kansas City Chiefs team against a Philadelphia Eagles team. And I had the Chiefs winning. And even though I tried everything in my power to imagine a world where this did not happen, this is what we are left with. And I think at this point, there's just no escaping it. This is reality. This is what the football gods are intending. And there are a lot of things that I think just we cannot deny about this game. The Chiefs are on the verge of a three-peat, and I think the hype around the first three-peat is too great. You've got people talking about how it's never done before, and the discourse about having the first team in history to ever three-peat, it is so well covered, and it hasn't even happened yet. We've also got the fact that this is Andy Reid's alma mater, his former team. Andy Reid used to be head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles, even took them to the Super Bowl, and 2 years ago, when we saw them match up, Andy Reid got the best of his prior team. I feel like he's going to have that edge. He's going to have a bone to pick with the Philadelphia Eagles. It is personal. It is a personal, deep-rooted rivalry for Andy Reid. He has something to prove. He already got his one, but you don't want to make it a 1-1 game. He can make history by being the first coach to win 3 in a row. He can make history by beating his last team yet again. And I think that he is just going to have such a chip on his shoulder that the Chiefs are going to inevitably win this game. Other things to think about. Patrick Mahomes' record against Vic Fangio. Now, there's no denying that Vic Fangio is one of the best defensive minds that we have seen. And on many teams, he has illustrated his ability to scheme a great defense, a bona fide lockdown defensive unit. But in his career against Patrick Mahomes, he has had little to no success. Mahomes has torn him apart. Torn him apart. I believe for 10 touchdowns, 1 interception in the matchups he's had against Vic Fangio. And it's almost helpless to it. There is nothing this guy can do to stop Mahomes. And there's the whole Taylor Swift element to it, you know. Travis Kelce dating Taylor Swift. I feel like, as much as people don't enjoy it, it is alive and it is strong, and it is something that brings extra attention to the NFL. So even if the NFL has nothing to do with the actual outcome of this game, I do think that, like, subconsciously, the universe is going to make this happen? A Chiefs three-peat. You know, we saw them win against the San Francisco 49ers for the second time last year. What better way to end their three-peat by having another, rematch? Last year we saw the Niners and thought, hey, they look even better than the last time these guys matched up. You've got Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's a lot better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Now they've got Brandon Ayuk. They're looking sharp. Their defense is so high-flying. And look what happened. This time around, you get your new Bentley and Saquon Barkley. You've got a new, young defensive core. A bunch of guys who are making plays. Defense has looked stellar all throughout the playoffs. You've got Vic Fangio calling the shots. How could they lose? And I think that is the problem with this level of thinking. It's always, how could the other team not win? And we underestimate that the Chiefs are just too damn good when it comes to playing football at this point in the year. And it's not me trying to glaze. I, with every ounce of my soul, don't want the Chiefs to win. I don't, and I'm not gonna hide it. I have so much Chiefs fatigue, and I will wear it on my sleeve. But I do have to self-reflect on my predictions. They say that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I feel like if I choose the Eagles to win this game, I will not have ever learned my lesson. I will just be a Chiefs hater. And yeah, just last year I made my playoff bracket and I thought that the Ravens were going to win the whole thing. The Ravens matched up with the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, and I came up with reasons for why I thought the Chiefs looked super beatable, and why I think that the Ravens actually have the tools to topple them, though no one really has been able to do that. And the Chiefs inevitably won that game, so we had a Super Bowl matchup between the 49ers and the Chiefs. And once again, I came up with a list of reasons for why I think the 49ers have the tools to win it, because the Chiefs just don't look that impressive. And once again, I was wrong, and the Chiefs won their second straight trophy this year. Going into the AFC Championship game, I had my list of reasons for why I think Josh Allen will finally find himself on the right side of history against the Chiefs. He's gotten his fair share of wins against Mahomes in the regular season. It's about time that he gets one in the postseason. And once again, I was proven wrong. So, even if everything is telling me that this Eagles team is better than the last matchup, that they are better on paper on offense, that they are better on paper on defense, and that they actually do have every right and ability to win this game, isn't it time that I just accept the inevitable? It is. They are simply the team to beat. And I am tired of getting it wrong. I'm tired of doubting for the sake of doubting. I think that the Chiefs, they're bound to win this game. Just, it is what it is. They're very well coached. They're very good at executing when it matters most, and that's really all you need. You don't need a bunch of star power. You don't need a bunch of anything. It's just what's going to happen. I have accepted it. Now, there were a couple other things I wanted to mention regarding this matchup. I don't have a lot of stats-based insights. Really, this is just based on history and context and yeah, defeat. But with this Super Bowl matchup on the horizon, I did want to do something a little bit fun. I think we can all agree this is not the Super Bowl we were hoping for. I mean, if you're a Chiefs fan, you're elated. If you're an Eagles fan, you're elated. If you're anyone else, it's kind of like the least ideal Super Bowl outcome. But we gotta have fun with it. I am sure that this is gonna be a great game. Like, with everything that I've said. say runaway Chiefs favorite game. No, by no means. I think it's going to be very fun, very close. I think that the Eagles, their defense is playing superb. I think that Saquon Barkley has a real shot to make a difference in this game and maybe change it up. Is it what I want? Yes, absolutely. Is it what I think is going to happen? No. By some force of the universe, I think that the Chiefs are going to get it, and they're going to win 3 straight, being the first team to the repeat, and then you're going to have Patrick Mahomes in the GOAT conversation with Tom Brady. It's going to be a whole thing where people talk about it for this year, for many years to come, even though he's only had 4 rings and Brady's had 7. It is. But to make this Super Bowl a little more fun and a little bit more enticing to watch, I have come up with a bingo card, a Super Bowl bingo card of things I think could happen in the game that I'll be looking out for, because it will just spice things up, you know. These are things that I think are characteristic of the 2 teams and things that I think are characteristic of the Super Bowl, and I am interested in seeing if it plays out the way it will. So, my Super Bowl 59 2025 bingo card is as follows. First up, we have a Mahomes cross-body completion on a broken play. It's one of those things that Mahomes does like every other game, it feels like. But you'll know when you see it. This is something where he gets pressure, he kind of scrambles out, and then he's running to either his right and he throws it across his body to the left, or he's running to his left and he throws it across the field to the right on a play that very clearly was not meant to be that way, but they pick up a first down off of it. That is the first item on this bingo card. Number 2, we've got either LeBron James, DeMar DeRozan, or Russell Westbrook making an appearance at the Kendrick Lamar halftime performance. Based on the Not Like Us video and the Not Like Us Kendrick and Friends concert that Amazon Prime hosted, I feel like one of these guys could show up on stage. Of the 3, I feel like most likely it would be DeMar DeRozan, but I could see it being any of the 3. Maybe I'm completely off about this, but I'm putting it on the bingo card. Number 3, we've got a Saquon Barkley 50-plus yard rush. Now, he's been able to do this in, I want to say, every game of the playoffs so far. He's done it in the last 2 for sure. I can't quite remember if he pulled off a 50-yarder against the Packers, but he has a lot of breakaway runs this year. Why not another one in the Super Bowl? Number 4, we have a game-winning field goal. Lots of Super Bowls, lots of games, and in a final score being a field goal. That's all that really means. You've got one team that's behind by a margin of 3 or less, or even ahead by 3 or less. My math is off on that one. A team that is behind by less than 3, they kick a field goal, and that is the score that wins them the game. That is what qualifies as a game-winning field goal. And our 5th item on the bingo card, this can be a phantom 15-yard penalty. There's actually a reporter who asked Travis Kelce this question earlier the week in the Super Bowl media coverage. He went up to Travis and he said, "Hey Travis, what do you love more, Taylor Swift or phantom 15-yard penalties in the playoffs?" And Travis was obviously very pissed, and it's a very unprofessional question, but we can't deny that it is something that could show up. So I'm not attributing it to any team, but if there is a 15-yard penalty that seems somewhat phantom, that most people agree should not have been called, then we'll mark that square. Next up, we've got an A.J. Brown temper tantrum. An A.J. Brown temper tantrum sidelines, I guess it would probably be Hurts. I feel like if he's yelling at Jalen Hurts on the sidelines, or if he heads to the locker room early, I feel like all of those things constitute as a temper tantrum. Him pulling out a book, it can be seen as diva material, but it's not a tantrum. He was doing that to gloat more so. But yeah. After that, we've got a Travis Kelce pass play in the red zone. Now this one, I think, there's a lot of thought put into this one. In the Philadelphia Eagles' first ever Super Bowl win against the Patriots, they ran a play called Philly Philly, also known as the Philly Special, in which they had a funky transition of the ball, and it ended up in Nick Foles catching a pass for a touchdown in the game. Very iconic play, very well talked about play, and I think this time around we might see the Chiefs and Andy Reid try and use something like that against the Eagles. So I feel like Travis Kelce has had a decent amount of passing plays in his career. We've seen him take the wildcat formation snaps. I'm not going to say that is Patrick Mahomes necessarily catching the pass, because I don't think they want to risk that. But if we see a Travis Kelce passing play in the red zone, then we'll get the square. Next up, I've got a taunting / celebration penalty. This is anything after, a big first down was picked up or a touchdown was scored. Someone on one team will do a celebration and a ref will flag them. This could be something like one too many pumps. You had Jameson Williams doing one too many pumps in, I think, the game against the Commanders. I don't know if they called it on the field or not, but they definitely threw a flag later. I think earlier this year you had Xavier Worthy. That's who the other Chiefs weapon was. I totally forgot. Yeah, I knew I was missing someone. Xavier Worthy flashing a fake gun in one of their games. So something like that, where you've got a guy that celebrates a little too excessively by the referee's call, and they throw a no fun league flag. Next up, we've got 3 or more tush pushes in the Super Bowl. Tush push, in this context, it has to be the Eagles. If the Eagles run 3 or more plays of the tush push format, then we'll be able to mark the square. I feel like, that one's probably going to happen. We saw them run it a lot against the Commanders, with Frankie Louvu diving all over the field. And it might be time for them to break it out again. And lastly, to finish our second row of the bingo card, we've got a mention of Pat Riley. Pat Riley, the current general manager of the Miami Heat, he has a trademark. He has multiple trademarks on the phrases three-peat. And I think the odds that they bring up the word three-peat are pretty high. But for them to actually mention Pat Riley by name again, we'll have to see. So that one is one we're going to have to listen out for. Next, we've got a star player getting hurt in the first half. Now with this game, I don't know who it could be, but last year we saw the 49ers lose one of their key defensive players in the first half to a completely random and unpredictable injury. And in the Eagles matchup against the Patriots in the Super Bowl, saw Brandon Cooks go down. I believe in the Rams game against the Bengals, we saw Odell Beckham Jr. get injured. I think it was in the first half. And so I feel like the odds of something like this happening are somewhat high. What constitutes a star player is a little bit hard to define. I'm not going to go out and try and name all the people that I think are stars. But rushing touchdown. Jalen Hurts did this 3 times in the previous Super Bowl matchup. I want to say he did this 3 times last week. So the odds are pretty good. He is pretty good at the tush push in for a touchdown play. And we got to see if he brings it back to the Super Bowl. Next up, we've got our free square, our free space. We are at the direct center of the bingo card at this point. N3. And then, moving on to our next square, we've got the Chiefs erasing a 10-point deficit. This one I feel like is self-explanatory. The Chiefs, in their Super Bowl matchups, in their playoff matchups, they often find themselves down in a big hole of 10 or more points, and they almost always climb out of it. So, will this be a dominant victory where they lead all throughout? Will it be a close-fought game where they're only winning or trailing by a little bit? Or will they do it once again where they fall down big and they completely dig themselves out of the hole to win it? And lastly, to end the third row, we've got overtime. We've seen 2 overtime Super Bowls at this point. One between the Falcons and the Patriots, and the other one being last year between the 49ers and the Chiefs. Now, the 49ers and Chiefs one was a little bit different because of the adjusted overtime rules, but I think everyone is well aware of those rule changes after the 49ers kind of screwed the pooch on that one. So we'll have to see if the Eagles need to test they're beyond the 60-minute drill. Next up, I've got Eagles winning the turnover battle. This is something that the Eagles have done in each of their first 3 playoff games so far. The Eagles actually haven't committed a single turnover in the playoffs yet, which I think they're the first team to do that. Playing from the wild card to the Super Bowl, commit 0 turnovers. They're playing very well, very clean. We have to see if it persists. Now this isn't a square that requires them to not turn the ball over. It is just having them win the turnover battle. Next up, we've got a Jake Elliott missed kick. Honestly, I think the odds are decently high on this. Jake Elliott, though he's a good kicker, he's been missing the mark in quite a few of these. Don't remember if he had one against the Commanders, but I feel like both of the first 2 games he did miss a kick. Next up, we have Travis Kelce, touchdown with a ban to Taylor Swift. The ban to Taylor Swift is not the difficult part. I feel like that is going to happen almost any time Travis Kelce gets a play of over 15 yards, but the touchdown is the actual thing to look out for. I feel like if he scores a touchdown, there's no way they're not banning to Taylor Swift, but for the sake of this being a Chiefs game, we should put it on the bingo card. Next up, we have another Kelce, but this is going to be the other Kelce brother. I have Jason Kelce cries. Now, I think that the Super Bowl is going to be an emotional experience for Jason Kelce, seeing his brother face off against his old team, being able to reach this mark without him. I know that he's going to feel supportive for them, but in the event that the Eagles are able to take down the Chiefs, I feel like there's a slight chance we see Jason Kelce cry. I think that he's a big old softie in a good way, and I think that he would get a little teary-eyed for the Eagles being able to hoist their second ever Lombardi trophy, and maybe he would feel a little bit bad for his brother. So yeah, if we get any shots of Jason Kelce crying, that's a dot, that's a check. And our last item on the 4th row of our bingo card, this is a 5-row card by the way, is going to be Tom Brady speaking on Mahomes' GOAT status. Now, the Super Bowl is going to be presented by Fox this here, and our commentators are going to be Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady. And with Tom Brady commenting on the Super Bowl, I think it's kind of natural that they're going to bring up his Super Bowl resume. And they're going to talk about the 7 Super Bowls that he won, the 10 Super Bowls that he played in. In those talks, they might mention how he's able to beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs a couple times. And I feel like either the writers or Kevin Burkhardt or some way, some shape or form, we're going to see someone ask Brady if a Chiefs three-peat gives Mahomes an edge in GOAT conversations, or if it won't make him the GOAT. We've already seen Stephen A. Smith and a couple other analysts talk about how a three-peat, it's never been done before, it would give Mahomes GOAT status. So if Tom Brady happens to discuss this topic, we will get a check mark here. And lastly, we make it to our 5th and final row of the bingo card. Our last 5 things to watch out for. We've got, first up, a non-quarterback Super Bowl MVP. This happens, I'll say every once in a while. You've got Von Miller winning it in Super Bowl 50. You've got Julian Edelman winning it in the game against the Rams. Cooper Kupp winning it in the game against the Bengals. Here, I feel like everyone's eyes are going to be on Saquon Barkley, just because he's the running back for the Eagles. I think everyone expects him to have a big game. So, most likely candidate that's not Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes will probably be Saquon. But who knows, maybe Devontae Smith pops up for a big game. Maybe A.J. Brown, maybe Travis Kelce, maybe Remigio, the punt returner for the Chiefs, scores 2 touchdowns. Who knows? It could be anyone. So yeah. Or a defensive player, obviously. I should have gone with some of those names. Karlaftis, Jalen Carter, Quinyon Mitchell. Anywho. Then we've got mention of the 3 Chief or the Chief Pete. This one kind of builds on the CBS broadcast by Tony Romo and Jim Nantz last week, where the Chiefs, when they were heading to the Super Bowl, Jim Nantz brought up the fact that Pat Riley owns these patented terms, these trademarks on three-peat. So he's coming up with different ways that the Chiefs could coin their success in the last 3 years. So if they don't use the word three-peat, would it be 3-chief or would it be a chief-peat? So if either of those terms get brought up, I am probably blowing my brains out, but I will give myself a mark on this bingo card. Next up, we've got a replay of the Philly special. The Philly special, the play with Nick Foles that I talked about. If they show it on the screen in its entire glory, then, I'll live through the drama and give myself a mark on this one. It was a good play. I want to see another team, improve on it this year, or, run it again. I feel like the Eagles running it is kind of dangerous, just because they already did it once. The Chiefs are going to be prepared for it. I feel like the Chiefs running the Philly special, it could happen. I feel like there's a non-zero chance that it happens. That's why I have the Travis Kelce one on there. Then, our second to last square, it's going to be a Saquon Barkley fumble. Saquon Barkley, very talented running back, doesn't have very many fumbles on the year. I think just 2. What would be more Chiefs Devil Magic-esque than a Saquon Barkley fumble on the biggest of stages? And yeah, with that, we have our last item on the bingo card. This one, you also do have to wait till the very end. Some of these you can't really call until the last quarter, so it's not like all of them can happen at any point. Some aren't very dependent on the end of the game, and this is one. The last item on the bingo card is if the confetti drops before there are zeros on the clock. And what I mean by that is if there's already confetti flying through the air, falling through the sky, before the clock officially hits 0000, indicating that the game is over. Now this could either be out of a malfunction, or it could be because one team is in victory formation and they're kneeling it out. You know that there's like 25 seconds left in the game, but the game is over. But yeah, just a fun little one there. And that is all. These are my Super Bowl predictions. Not as fun or analytical of a video from me, I will admit, but I think that we've gotten to the stage of predictions where it's more gut feeling than it is actual statistical evidence at this point. A lot of my stats are cherry-picked. I mean, that's what I do every single week. I find stats and figures that align with what my personal beliefs are. Sometimes something stands out to me a lot, and I will go with it over what I think to be true. But this is one where it's just like what I personally am rooting for and what I think are going to happen are just two separate things. And what I think is the Chiefs are going to three-peat, and everyone's going to talk about it. And it is everyone else in the NFL's duty to change that, to give them a reason to be sad about. And I would like for it to happen, but I don't know why I keep lying to myself. So yeah, as always, thank you for watching. If you enjoy content like this, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll be putting out more videos as the weeks progress. The next video, I am debating on if I do a Super Bowl picks video, though I haven't had a lot of time to research it, or if I do an NBA trade deadline recap video. With the football season being pretty much almost wrapped up, I will dabble in a little bit more NBA content, and I feel like this NBA trade cycle in particular was hectic in a great way. So you might want to tap into that.